Good afternoon and welcome to the Atlanta Council. Thank you for coming to today's Captains of Industry event, Putting Artificial Intelligence to Work for National Security. I'm Steve Grundman. I'm a senior fellow in the Council's Scowcroft Center for Strategy and Security, and I'm the director of its Arsenals of Democracy project. Captains of Industry, a series now in its 12th year, convenes senior executives in business to address the public interests their companies serve and the public policies that shape their markets. As befits the big ambition of that mission statement, today's event features no fewer than 3 such captains: Dohrman, the chief executive of Tangram Flex; Mihai Filip, the founder and chief executive of Oves Enterprises; and Sean Moriarty, the chief executive of Primer AI. In the main body of this event, my friend Mikhail Grinberg, a partner at the consultancy Renaissance Strategic Advisors, will moderate a discussion with Caitlin, Mihai, and Sean, in which we will hear how each of their companies is putting artificial intelligence to work for national security. First, however, I'm going to prevail upon Justin Finelli, the acting Chief Technology Officer of the U.S. Department of the Navy, to offer some keynote remarks which will frame the topic and offer a perspective about it from the Pentagon. Convenings such as this are integral to the Scowcroft Center's mission of developing sustainable, nonpartisan strategies to address the most important security challenges facing the United States and the world. The center honors General Brent Scowcroft and his distinguished legacy of service. It also embodies his ethos of nonpartisan commitment to national security, U.S. leadership in cooperation with allies and partners, and the mentorship of a next generation of leaders in national security affairs. Consistent with that Scowcroft Center mission is the work of its Forward Defense Initiative, home to my Arsenals of Democracy project. Forward Defense generates ideas and connects stakeholders, just like all of you in the room, in the defense ecosystem to promote enduring military advantages for the United States, its allies, and partners. Today's Captains of Industry event, exploring how artificial intelligence can enable military capabilities, is squarely on that objective. Before I yield the stage to our keynote speaker, I'm obliged to offer several housekeeping notes. The agenda for this event runs 75 minutes and has 3 parts: Justin's keynote remarks to begin, Mikhail's panel discussion, and a segment toward the end when Mikhail will field questions from those of you in the audience, both here in person and those online. To bring your question to Mikhail's attention, either step up to that microphone or go to the website askac.org. I say again, askac.org, where you can type out a short direct question. We will receive it, curate it, and offer it to Mikhail to present to the panel. This entire event is public and on the record. This fact, of course, is most significant for our several speakers, but it is no less binding on those of you who may want to ask the panel a question. So please, if you want to offer your question, you'll need to identify yourself by name and affiliation. Again, both those of you who may step up to the microphone, but also those of you who are offering questions to us online. We also encourage the online audience to join a conversation on X following @AC Scowcroft, &AC Scowcroft, and using the hashtag #ForwardDefense. Okay, permit me now to welcome Justin Finelli for his keynote remarks. Justin's defense and intelligence community career has spanned 6 agencies and 3 military services, no less, the majority of which, though, have been at the Department of the Navy, where he currently serves as the acting Chief Technology Officer and the Technical Director of the Program Executive Office for Digital and Enterprise Services. He previously served as Chief Architect of Defense Medical Intelligence Data, Technical Director of the Naval Information Warfare Center, and was a Service Chief's Fellow at DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. His performance and achievements in these and other assignments have earned him considerable recognition, among which are the National Intelligence Meritorious Unit Citation, the Civilian Exemplary Achievement Award, and the Secretary of the Navy's Innovation Award. I'm really pleased and grateful for his ability to be here to kick off this substantive discussion about AI, putting AI to work for national security. Please join me in welcoming Justin Finelli.
Thank you, Steve, and Atlanta Council. And if we're putting AI to work, I guess that makes us co-workers. So good afternoon, co-workers. We have a technology that has achieved adoption of 94% of business and government organizations. After 18 years, we've gotten better at buying and utilizing the cloud, but we still aren't where we need to be in terms of proficiency and value. Now let's talk about AI for a change. I'd like to attempt to connect a few stars into constellations while we're at it. That 94% number should stick with you because we're only 7% away on generative AI after 18 months rather than 18 years. We know that the human mind struggles with exponentials. Visualizing 10x acceleration is harder than it sounds. Well, this is even harder for organizations who are changing the way that they work and if they aren't laser focused. Software development within the department after 60 years is still very often a tale of two cities. When the wave changes, when the wave moves 10 times faster, you don't run faster. You change the way that you work. You change the way that you move. Collectively, as a public-private ecosystem, AI adoption must be different. The time for that is now. AI costs more, and it involves more art than science. These are key differences. Right now, there are fewer skilled practitioners and those well-versed in buying it and maximizing value. This spells opportunity. It spells action. Leveraging private sector more and smarter is the choice that gives us the clearest advantage. Together, recognizing that we already have recognized that is a first down. It's not a touchdown, but it's progress. Dual use and the economics behind it is a wave that has served us pretty well to date. It's been promising. It has, from SaaS to aviation, brought us wins. Aviation moved from dropping bombs and precision munitions only after proving out the logistics and reconnaissance cases. We, too, must look for dual use case opportunities and leverage our partners as such. We need to leverage the investments, the components, the use cases, and the lessons of others for second mover advantage, and we do that by refining towards our needs and increased value in a measurable, concrete way. Concrete examples of value to date don't just anchor on what's trending in generative AI. We are prioritizing impact over sexiness. Aerial and maritime surveillance has brought improved decision-making and can be applied further to maintenance and compound security. This is already paying dividends. Tech manuals, searchability, and recommendations and streamlining may not sound flashy, but they save significant sailor and marine time lost, affecting focus and therefore outcomes. Hours when we need hours, minutes when we need minutes because of upfront investment. And the CNO's new Project 33 is aimed at ship, aircraft, and submarine effectiveness, amongst other activities, and the Pacific Fleet is actively helping us move faster right now. AI in national security is not about AI. It's not about the technology. It's about measuring mission accomplishment, advantage, and including divestment in the actions that we take. That is how we're measured. There are dichotomies that float around and questions that float around. Performance or safety, enterprise or warfighting, software or IT. These are interesting questions. They need to be answered. They need to be answered by doing. The answer is yes, and what we can leverage to maximize value, speed, scale, and outcomes is an action, not an inaction. Responsible AI has helped us. A car with brakes is more effective than a car without, regardless of how fast it goes, but the groundwork has been laid there by the CDAO and other partners, and the risk of inaction in learning by doing is real. Getting to work looks like learning together, leveraging shared cloud, leveraging existing investments, leveraging shared edge hardware, governance, models, repositories, personnel, and looking for opportunities for disruption. Recognizing this means breaking down some data silos that are cross-cutting. Like a utility, federated, first electricity, then email, then internet. We have seen this before, this one's moving faster. Again, how do we measure how well we're leveraging? It's the same answer, outcomes. Return on investment is something we can quantify now. Make the case back to us. Drivers want it. Drivers, we seek flexibility, modularity, thoughtfulness on switching costs, and you to understand our business better than we understand yours. The government is increasingly interested in mature partnerships, context over control. Help us be a better partner, smarter, faster partner. Rather than over-prescribing on design and what people sometimes call lowercase r requirements, we are making good faith efforts to move out by providing a North Star and other stars to align to along the way to get us to that advantage faster. Commander's intent, informed captains of industry with freedom to decide how to bring the fastest outcomes, is in a new set of guidances. I mentioned Project 33 and the NAV plan. You can see AI there as you read it. The Information Superiority Vision 2.0 is out, and I was out in San Diego last week, and the number of PEOs and vendors who said, we have this handy and we are making moves. That's what we're looking for, not permission. Permission granted, move forward. Outcome-driven metrics is allowing us to see and show how a difference is being made. We don't want 20% better. We want 3 times better, 7 times better. Impress ourselves. Responsible AI, that groundwork has been laid. You can find it. You don't have to talk about it. Use it, learn together. Divest to reinvest, because AI money needs to come from sunsetting systems and processes. This is one of the hardest parts, and it is absolutely a contact sport. We need your help extra on this one. Innovation adoption and the accelerating change design concepts, ACDCs, from cattle drive to structured pilots with pilot intakes and lean business cases, are allowing us to move faster together. We are looking to unleash our partners and get wins. Unlike cloud and software, taking our time to get great at AI has much higher risks. Now is the time to join together in the culture of innovation adoption. It's a choice we must make based on outcomes. Where in the rowboat are you? Thank you.
So why don't we have the panel please take the stage now. Mikhail, if you'd sit right here. Mikhail Grinberg is a partner at Renaissance Strategic Advisors, a business consultancy dedicated to the aerospace and defense sector, someone I knew I could count on to moderate a panel of a complex topic at the cutting edge, both of business and technology. Mikhail, thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Really appreciate it. And I think we'll really start with letting our distinguished panelists here introduce themselves and spend really a few minutes talking about their companies and what you're trying to achieve for both the U.S. government and its adoption of AI. So starting with you, Caitlin.
Okay, thank you. I'm Caitlin Dohrman. I lead Tangram Flex. Tangram Flex is exclusively focused on DoD, so I'll be drawing my perspective from there today. So the traditional approach to systems integration is far too costly and takes far too long, especially to be able to integrate emerging technologies such as autonomy, AI. So the DoD increasingly is moving to open systems architecture to address this issue, which promises to bring more optionality, better modularity, and interoperability. In order to achieve that vision, though, we really need to have repeatable digital engineering and automated code, software code generation capabilities. So Tangram Flex comes in. Tangram Flex provides a software platform and expertise to help our customers to build software in a new way. And like Justin just said, don't run faster, change how you do things. So we have advanced software design, development, and verification capabilities, including the use of AI to move faster when it comes to software development and verified and correct software development. This ensures that systems can be quickly integrated, which overall is enhancing our mission capability and readiness, and as I said, giving the DoD more options down the road when it comes to sustainment and the ability to integrate emerging technology.
Yes, that's me. Thanks so much for having me. It's very good to be here. I'm Sean Moriarty. I'm the CEO of Primer AI. At Primer, we build software principally for the DoD and the IC so that our customers, analysts, operators, researchers, leaders can make sense of massive amounts of unstructured data in near real time. We are living in a world where, I think it's been said many times that probably 5% of potentially available and useful data sitting on disk or in memory across these environments are actually accessible and able to be used. And 80% of that is unstructured. And we're now moving into a world where innovation economy has delivered the capabilities to do something more with that data, such that we can address present threats with tools that enable us to take action and understand the world around us much faster than we ever could before. Justin hit on, I think some of the fundamental key points, which is we actually have the innovation, certainly in this country. We've got the capabilities, but that need for speed is profound. And how do we move from innovation to deployed capability much more quickly? And as a software company, we talk all the time about the importance of great engineering. But great engineering really comes from not just the talent and the experience of the engineers and the product folks, but it really starts with a deep understanding of customer need, which means you need to get close to the mission set. You need to be able to work side by side. And what you're able to do effectively is understand what the user needs to do to be more effective in their job and marry that with what technology can bring to bear. And once you've actually accomplished that, then you can start really moving into the future, because the innovation wave coming behind us is going to unleash capabilities that over the course of my 30 years we haven't seen before. There's a lot of smoke and hype around AI, and maybe we'll get into that. But underneath it all, there are some profoundly powerful new capabilities that are ours to harness. And at Primer, we aim to do that for the benefit of the customer and the missions that we serve.
Thank you. I'm Mihai Filip, and I'm founder and CEO of Oves Enterprises. Oves Enterprises is a software company that I've built in Romania, actually, more than 10 years now. We did a lot of work for the commercial sector. Afterwards, we've got the clearances to work on defense projects, and we started working for NATO, most of our work on aerospace and defense projects. We did a lot of work for them. We learned a lot, and the next step for us was to build our own products. So we started building products into the defense sector, hardware and software. We did both, actually. We still have more than 10 products that we are working on. We have from the R&D stage, where we are building a hypersonic missile, to really fast drones and other things, cybersecurity for jets and so on. But we also have delivered some products, such as demining drones that we delivered in Ukraine and in other conflict zones. But I think the most interesting product that we built in the defense sector is our Nemesis AI. Actually, what we did with Nemesis, we had the platform where we are training our AI, and we found a new way how to train better and faster our AI using auto AI and hyperparameter tuning. After that, we called some institution and said, can you give us some data? In this case, was about Russian tanks in Ukraine, because Romania, I don't know if you know, it's close to it's actually the border with Ukraine. And we train our AI to recognize all of the T-80 tanks in Ukraine using aerial footage. Now the next step for us was to put all of this knowledge and all of this brain onto some hardware. And we made a partnership with NVIDIA where we put everything onto some Jetson series boards. Of course, this was not so feasible for us because we had the dependency and the supply chain is really important for us. So we bought a company that right now we are doing our own boards where the AI is running. More than that, we said, okay, building drones, we own one of our offices. We have offices in 7 countries right now and more than 400 employees. We said, okay, now it's time to put the whole technology into some drone. But before doing this, I've been several times to Ukraine. And in my last visit, the Ministry of Defense from Ukraine said, look, Mihai, don't send us any more drones with goggles and suitcases on the battlefield because most of the soldiers are normal people like you and me. They don't know how to operate this type of drone. So we need a one-button drone. I went back home to my team and said, one button, this is interesting, so what should we do? So actually, we did a drone that it's able to, you're pushing a button, the drone is going to take off. It's using a barometer and gyroscope. It's flying behind the enemy lines. It's a loitering munition drone. It's using AI to find the target, visual recognition, and it's destroying the target. 100% autonomous. We're not using any radio or GPS to do this. All of the processing power it's on the drone. Basically, what we try to do from the beginning is to move the whole update and training model from the producer to the battalion on the ground. Before, it was like, you have a rocket, you need to send it back, make an upgrade, and send it back on the battlefield. Now you can do this in your secure facility using our platform in a few minutes. This worked great. The next day, we've got a call from an important institution here in the US that said, okay, great, the drone works well. Can you do it on rockets? I said, yeah, sure, we can. So we put our AI and our hardware to some rockets, and we use it as a companion, identify different sensors from neuromorphic cameras to radars. We did sound recognition, visual recognition, and so on. And we were able to identify and destroy some targets into a war area, right? It worked well. We went further in this for the Pentagon. Actually, we made a demo where we put a camera onto a building, and we were identifying upcoming drones, and we sending interceptor drones to destroy the upcoming drones, and basically made a mini drone shield. So our AI and our capability, it's bigger, and we are testing everything that we can, from loitering ammunition boats to jets to, I don't know, we do a lot of innovation. Of course, we are still evolving. Before we are doing visual recognition, now we are doing situational awareness. Before we are flying drones, now next week we are going to fly in a simulator in F-16. So actually we are not have only a product, we have a capability. It's about the platform and the things that we can do. For example, one of our important clients wants us to do predictive maintenance because it's a pain in the last 20 years. One of our clients wants to do a synthetic data generator tool because they have a lot of data, don't know how to use it. So this is Nemesis AI, but of course it does much more than that, but maybe later I can tell you more about it.
Yeah, thank you very much for the introductions. I think one of the really important things for the audience to realize is that we have on this panel several companies that represent really excellent perspectives, some that are more contractors and closer to the government, so that Caitlin's representing, Sean with Primer as kind of a commercial tech, defense tech model, and Mihai provides both the perspective of a developer of a capability, but also how AI is being adopted differently by our partners and allies. And so it's a really important context, and we really wanted to open with a question that is highly complex, but we're going to give you guys a very quick 30-second round here to answer, and then we'll dive into many more questions, which is, can we put AI to work? Is it something to contain, put in a box, and deploy? Or is it really an enabler, and we need to deploy it everywhere all at once? And so we'll start again, kind of go in the same order, but Caitlin, over to you.
Okay, thank you. So I think AI needs to be used in context of what you're trying to accomplish and should be highly tailored to the use case. When unconstrained and kind of used for general purpose, LLMs specifically, are able to generate lots of answers without constraints, and that can lead to incorrect answers. And it is a very manual and tedious process to verify that the information you're getting is correct. So I think it's important to put it into the context of accomplishing something. And I know we are already talking about so many great use cases. Some examples that come to mind for me for how AI can be put to work. One is as an enabling capability. We can use generative AI to really lean into digital engineering and help the services to design, develop, and verify software more quickly. So hopefully I'll be able to talk a little bit more about this, but you can put specific constraints around the use of AI for this use case, point it at a tightly constrained domain-specific modeling language that can then auto-generate software. Another example is using AI on edge nodes in order to smartly, kind of context-dependent, mission-dependent, be able to filter tons and tons of data from lots of sensors and figure out which data actually needs to be sent over the backhaul. So you're reducing the requirement for your network. I think in both examples, it's just AI is useful against a specific problem that's well-bounded and given proper constraints so that then people can verify it, which is very important when we're talking about defense use cases.
Thank you.
Yeah, the TLDR on this is it's a massive enabler. Move fast, be thoughtful. And I think everybody who is looking to bring technology to bear should start with, what do we need to do to be more effective in our jobs? And that really should be done at every single level. And then work back to understand what the capabilities can bring to bear in that specific context. And what you'll find, there are a myriad of use cases. And then what I would suggest, certainly by way of prioritization, is make sure you implement against the most high leverage, most critical mission sets as quickly as you possibly can. But getting accustomed to and acclimated with the technology, even in the most mundane of use cases, is a great way to get low-risk exposure, and that can be done very quickly. And as a matter of fact, it is. There's a lot of people that are playing around with models for very mundane tasks where it is not mission-critical to an organization, but can make people a little quicker and a little faster in their job, and that exposure has value too.
Yes, we can put AI to work. The idea is that we need to do it fast. And I think we're talking about US, and we are a partner with US, and I think US needs to maintain the first position when it comes to the AI adoption into the defense industry, because you are there. And I know there are some initiatives here to bring the important AI companies here and to help CEOs be in contact with the industry, and not only with the industry, but also with the institutions such as the Pentagon and so on. It's really important to understand that the AI is evolving really fast. So time is, on this case, not on our side. And you need to understand that we have competitors. So the funny thing is that here, everything it's about regulations and standards and so on, which is great. I really like it. But the thing is that in order to make a standard worldwide and to put AI to work, you need to put all of the big players on the table. And believe me, China and Russia, they don't care about our standards and regulations and so on. So we need to adapt it fast, not only to use it and to think about AI, but to put it on the battlefield as soon as possible and to test it. Not to have it only in the lab and to say, yeah, we do AI. This pen has AI. No. We need really to enhance the weapon capabilities to use AI. And in the future, you need to understand that in the future, as in the next few months, most of the war that we're going to see in Ukraine, and once again, I'm like 100 kilometers from the war, you're going to see a lot of autonomous drones, machines, and robots. They already started to be used on the battlefield. So we need to use it for our national security. We need to use it fast, and we need to find how we can make the regulations and the rule as quickly as is possible, because most of the regulation and the standards, they have the thing that they are going to slow the innovation, which we are not trying to do this. In the same time, it's really important because imagine you're driving on a highway, you have guardrails to protect you from the other things, but you need to get to point A to point B. This is what the regulation does. It's a guardrail. Hopefully, it's not going to stop innovation because the other countries are much way up front of Europe and US.
Thank you. One of the things that when you're listening to Justin provide his remarks at the beginning of this presentation, or senior leaders, there's a certain clarion call, right, and clarity in it. And from Justin's remarks, speed, outcomes, magnitude improvement is all the types of things that we hear. From your perspective, and this question will be for Caitlin, does the government, does the U.S. government, does the military really know what it's asking for when it says AI, or that it needs it, what it is, or more of it? And where you see that, how is it manifesting itself? And where you don't, where can it improve?
Yes, so the government knows that they want AI so they can go faster. And like all of us, we're trying to figure out exactly what kind of AI we need to do that. So we have had a lot of really great conversations and are seeing solicitations related to AI and generative AI specifically that either are exploratory so we can get after those questions, or they already have specific use cases in mind and have tight bounds. It's tempting for all of us to try to focus on the perfect AI solution that we're going to deploy and is going to solve all of our problems, but the reality is that's going to be very difficult to accomplish. And I'd encourage us all to focus on some of the more mundane things that we're able to enable today with the use of AI. We can really save a lot of time for our engineers and be able to ultimately deliver capabilities to the warfighter more quickly that are safe and highly assured. I think there's a lot of potential, as I've mentioned, for accelerating things like systems modeling. So across the DoD, we are seeing the adoption of digital engineering in terms of model-based systems engineering, which is building a virtual representation of the system that will be built. So all of the components, the way that they interface with each other, and in some cases, specifications about how those interfaces will work. Model-based systems engineering has been around for a long time, but it's seeing increasing adoption to replace the old way of doing things, which is through specifying many, many requirements, either in databases or on paper, and then spending a lot of time in making system models. So MBSE can be used to do things like verify models before hardware is built, verify how software will work on certain hardware platforms, but it's still a time-consuming and tedious process to do MBSE. AI, it would be a great fit for helping to accelerate MBSE by being able to actually produce those models, or at least a start of those models. We've experimented with it using our domain-specific language, which is called Flex. It's a domain-specific language for specifying how software interfaces work. Between using generative AI plus Flex, you can actually go from a whiteboard sketch of a system model to compliant SysML, which is the language that specifies model-based systems engineering. You could also do something like on the drive to work, think out loud, record something that says this is how it's going to work together verbally. I'm going to have these main components and subcomponents of my system that'll be connected in this way, and by the time you get to work, you could have a SysML model that is at least a starting point. So I think there's a lot of promise in these types of use cases. We're exploring them today, I know, across industry, and trying to help our customers be able to make use of those. And I think that those are really exciting.
Thank you. And in some ways, it's a great transition, Sean, to you for perspectives on, as you develop products, right, you try to identify what the users will need, and you're bringing certain solutions to the government. What are those most promising use cases? Where do you see the most upside potential, not just from a business perspective, but for mission delivery for AI?
So I think when you're in the information management, information analysis business, the use cases abound. But of course, we have our roots in the IC and building out tools for the Intel analysts that are literally drowning in unstructured data is a pretty straightforward use case that we've been working on for a while. But there continues to be greater need there. That moves also into operations planning as well. And then I would say even some of the fundamentals of report writing, which is a necessary function, across the DoD and the IC, look, most folks are not Shakespeare, but a well-written 5-paragraph narrative is essential in disseminating useful information. And if you think about the time that's spent gathering relevant information, understanding it, checking it, synthesizing it, and writing it, and then think about the tools we have today that can take a lot of that, what I would consider kind of preconditions to intelligence, you can do that now in a matter of minutes. And what you're doing for that expert is freeing them up so that they're putting out a high-quality product that's part of their job. But again, it's the starting point and not the end point. And you're giving them back precious hours where they can employ their creativity, their wisdom, and their tradecraft and go much, much deeper. So really promising use cases, just really around information management, synthesis, and dissemination.
Thank you, and Mihai, we'll trip up the questions, some of them that we had prepared, because you already addressed that our adversaries in China, Russia, and others are not going to be concerned with the same regulations. And I really like your analogy of regulations should be guardrails and not obstacles. I would just ask you, how do you think, from two vantage points, both from the vantage points of allies and vantage points of adversaries, assuming everybody is putting regulations and guardrails of some kind, how they differ between what the U.S. is doing and what you see our friends and our adversaries doing?
Yes, interesting question. So, once again, when it comes to regulations and everything and standards, because we need standards from it, we need to know that what the AI did, it's based on the standard, and this is the most important part. When it comes to regulation, of course, once again, we need all of the big players to be on the same table, and if they are, this is great. But the regulation part is going to be boring, and we are going to slow down the innovation. So in US, I think, in my opinion, the government, I don't want to say this publicly, but the government, I think is trying, in my opinion, to slow down maybe the AI. I don't know. It's quite funny what I'm seeing from Europe. In the same time, Europe is the same. They want standards, but they understand that we have a war in Europe. So I have been to a committee, I think a few months ago at the European Union. They were calling us because they said, yeah, you want to use your AI to be 100% autonomous, not to have a human in a loop, right? I said, yes. So I said, that's wrong. A lady from it's wrong. You can't do it. I said, yeah, sure we can. So imagine this, I said to the lady. You see a Russian tank 100 meters from your house. You have children. The Russians are going to take your children. Do you care about standards and regulations? No, you won't. Believe me. So this is the idea. This is what it happens in Ukraine. Yeah, we need standards. We need regulation. It's not normal for an AI to attack a human being, to target a human being. But to be quite honest, what I've seen, they don't care. Because it's their life and their family lives at stake. And you need to understand this. Yes, on paper, from your comfy office, yeah, we need standards, we need regulations. But on the battlefield, the situation changes. And it changes with the speed that it's incredible. And believe me, people that are saying that it's important, we should stop everything before, if we're not doing regulations, they need to go to Ukraine. And to see the whole cities destroyed, and afterwards, believe me, they're going to think more about how we can make regulation and standards, because they're important, but much more faster, not to be an obstacle as a government, to be an obstacle for a defense or innovation company when it comes to standards. So I think here we need a more shared dialogue with the institutions to see private companies, how they can help to make it faster and better, because if not, we are going to lose this battle. And we are going to lose the first position, as in America being the first when it comes to innovation.
I want to pick up on that thread. I think there's tremendous wisdom on it. And I think actually, if you look at what's been put forth around, the use of responsible AI as set forth, by various parts of the government, I think that's straightforward, and I think it's generally sensible. I think a lot of the fears of AI safety are substantially overblown. I really do. I actually think the greater problem in this country certainly is really around acquisitions and accreditation to bring this capability forward. I mean, realistically speaking, the organizations we serve have their obligations, the rules of the road. They understand those things very well. We need to be able to engineer systems that comport with those requirements. But the idea that you can, in the abstract and hypothetically, speaking, come up with some sort of framework that then gets tested that will prevent defects theoretically against an actual threat you're facing in real time. I mean, it's born of fear-mongering, not a deep understanding of what the technology does or doesn't. And fortunately, I think it's mostly been relegated to a sideshow, but the acquisition and accreditation is really where a lot of the impediments to deployment are.
Just one more comment, so don't get me wrong. I'm all in when it comes to sandboxes to test the AI and the solution that everyone is making. But in the same time, as Sean said, we really need to move and kick in, because if not, we're going to lose the war.
I agree with that completely.
Yeah, and somewhat, transition to a different set of questions, but one that probably touches regulations and adoption and acquisition quite a bit is, at a societal level, there's a great concern of kind of AI taking jobs, cannibalizing what labor does. For contracting and for its adoption into the across various use cases that Sean mentioned, Mihai mentioned, Caitlin, for you, how do you see the role of integrators, services companies, consulting firms in this world of AI? Is there going to be more need for labor integration, modeling, understanding, validation, and verification, right? And this is where some of the acquisition policies come in, or less, and how soon are some of those changes coming?
So I see AI, especially combined with approaches like MOSA, which is modular open systems approaches, will actually allow far more companies to contribute in terms of integration than are currently able to, whether that's subsystems integration or even at the platform or system level. It does go to your point about verification. The integrator role is really critical in the DoD due to the need for high precision, safety, accuracy of systems that our warfighters rely on. And I think that doesn't change at all. It only becomes more important. The current certification processes, things, accreditation, but also certifications such as airworthiness, gives us an idea for the level of rigor that is required of these systems. And I think they remain important for understanding the operation of complex systems and non-deterministic systems like autonomy in some cases. I also think that they themselves present an opportunity for AI to make a pretty big impact in terms of the timeline on which we can deliver capabilities. So for example, if using generative AI can generate a lot of the artifacts and documentation that are required by some of these systems, we can really cut down on the amount of time that it takes to do some of the manual verification and cybersecurity just processes that we have to go through using AI. And then my final point on when it comes to integration is that I would hope to see the government able to take on more in terms of managing complexity of systems themselves with help from digital systems modeling and systems engineering. Going back to the point about MOSA, part of MOSA is to help the government have options down the road to bring in best-in-class components within a system. And in order to do that, the program office really has to have control of the architecture, the interfaces, and I think that that's another place where AI can help.
Thank you. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, there's kind of two sides of this coin, and it kind of plays out over time. So, there is no question that that any new technology widely adopted initially will displace jobs. I mean, that's just always been a fact. But what's also true is over time, and this is, small solace to those who have been displaced, but many new jobs, and in fact, higher value jobs are created. We just know this with every technology cycle. You see China living a version of this right now where you have upwards of 30% unemployment amongst military-age males in China as a consequence of heavy investment in automation in the manufacturing sector. At the same time, I look around and say, how many critical tasks are not being done? And when I talk to customers about all the things they'd like to be doing but they can't, it is very clear to me that the near full employment we enjoy, as we bring more capability, what we're going to find is so many critical tasks that we are not doing or we're half doing, we actually are able to do more of and complete. And while there will be pockets of displacement, and I don't want to turn a blind eye to that, and we should be doing something to anticipate and address that, this technology actually will allow us to do many of the things that we are neglecting right now. And that to me is the larger problem, which is what is the work that should be getting done that's necessary for the security of the nation that isn't. And you also live at a time where having a tough time hitting your recruiting numbers, and people are being tasked with doing more and more with less and less. These tools help that.
Yeah, and Sean, I'll keep you on the mic. The other societal kind of level impact, or at least at the business level impact, is that you need so much capital to be successful in AI, just the sheer investments that are being placed by technology companies of all kind. How do you see the role of smaller, more innovative firms in the AI landscape? Do you see that as a promise, or are we going to have a environment where you'll have rapid consolidation and it'll really advantage the large companies that are making investments in this space?
Look, it's a great question. I'm going to be talking a little of my book right now because we are a small company, and I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't believe we not only had an opportunity to make an impact, but that we could be successful. But the reality is that this nation can benefit. Any nation can benefit greatly from an innovation economy which is characterized by entrepreneurial risk takers who are building these innovative solutions, and because you're putting a lot on the line, you're moving very, very quickly. You are often, you're always funded substantially with risk capital. And I'll give you an example of that, right? If you look at Palantir, there's a business where I think they burned $19 billion of private money before they made their first nickel of profit. And if you think about the benefit that the government has enjoyed as a consequence effectively of a private subsidy of that effort, all of that resource brought to bear, right? That is a profound advantage. And then if you look at the hundreds, if not thousands of companies that have been funded over the course of the past 5 to 7 years, where Silicon Valley investors, private equity money in New York, have all of a sudden turned to the government sector and said, wait, this can actually be a viable business for us. The government and the nation are huge beneficiaries of that risk capital because it fuels an innovation cycle. Now, at a certain point, they're going to be looking for return, which you don't want to see Palantir, for example, to be a one-off, right, a true unicorn. You'd like dozens or hundreds of companies to emerge out of this, because now you've created an extraordinary flywheel where private sector is funding innovation in partnership with government, and it works all the way through.
Absolutely. For Mihai, trying to understand that in this flywheel, right, I'll pick up on that as we're developing hopefully many startups that will make it through and become mature companies or mid-sized companies that are sustainable, profitable. For AI adoption amongst the aerospace and defense companies, or I think this panel we're more focused on the defense side, and you work with some of these primes, small and large. Where do you see the biggest distinctions between how primes that actually have large portfolios and can adopt some of these models at scale, and smaller firms that are focused on particular segments or niches? What are the differences in the approaches that they take?
So first of all, we need to understand that when we're talking about AI, we're not talking only about software. When we're talking about AI, we're talking about hardware as well. So most of the companies are doing also hardware, which is really important for US, because if something happens in Taiwan and China, US is going to have a dependency from an enemy. So I just had yesterday a briefing with someone from the army here. They were saying they were really concerned because most of the drones that they have for surveillance in US are TGIs. I think 92% or something like this, which is incredible. The smaller companies have the advantage by being flexible, and they can be flexible, and they can do innovation at a pace that the big players, the primes, can do it. And the primes understood that they need smaller company flexible, and in other regions of the world, most of them, to be quite honest, are bending the rules with the whole ITAR regulations and so on when working with startups in Europe, for example. They're trying to do this because they need the speed. If not, they're going to move really, really slow, and to make an innovation with the whole of the standards for a prime is going to take years and years, and a flexible startup can do it in months, maybe. In the same time, as I said earlier, we can see a lot of blockers when trying to work with governments, for example, in US, because, of course, the door is open for the big players, even if right now there are like, I don't know, 5 important players that have under their portfolio all of the innovation companies, which is not normal, if you ask me, because actually you have a dependency of 5 companies. They are working together as well. So in my opinion, I think we need to encourage more the governments to try to work with smaller companies, with innovation companies, with flexible companies. They can move quickly. In the same time, as Sean said, no, when you're talking about AI, I think the best thing that we managed to do for our government and other governments is to help them be more free to focus on the innovation part, to take the repetitive tasks. And this was a huge breakthrough for the Romanian government when you offered them a solution on the army side for the soldiers to be focused on the weapons, not on many other small things that are not important right now. So I think the collaboration, and the most important thing that I saw lately is that primes and governments, they don't share data. So we need to find a way for big defense companies to share data, even if it's synthetic data, but this is an important point. If we're thinking about China and Russia, they are sharing the data, they're sharing the technology. In the US, the primes are not sharing the data and the technology between them. So we need to focus on this.
Yeah, and I've been checking some of the audience questions, but we have a few more minutes until we'll jump into that, and some of them correlate. But really, Galen, start with you. What do you see as just the primary disconnects, maybe picking off of what Mihai said, as far as where industry says we need less regulations, or we need to go faster, or please use our product, or please buy it on this different business model. The government says, I need to verify, I need to adopt, I need to customize. What else are you seeing, or can you riff off some of those trends to try to understand where we can bridge the gap between what industry is saying it can deliver and the promise of AI, and what the government says it wants, and we heard earlier, actually wants dual use and from the commercial sector, but not exactly as it's being sold?
So I think one factor is there's a belief by some in the government and the industry that AI by itself is a solution or the equivalent of, a person, something that can be deployed to solve a problem, whereas it's really not going to be a monolithic approach. It should be thought as more of an enabling capability, I would say. And then I think there's also a disconnect where people look at, AI as a bubble, that there are skeptics. And again, I don't think that we're going to see any kind of slowdown in the adoption or maturation of AI. So, those are a couple that I see. In terms of the need for verification, or I'll focus on verification rather than regulation, but In terms of the need for verification, I think we all want the same thing there, which is that we want to have working capabilities that are safe for our warfighters and reliable, but we also want to get them fielded quickly, because that's just the whole point. If it takes too long, the technology is going to advance to the point where it doesn't matter. As someone said in a meeting last week, Air Force General said last week, he said, "You may have the greatest AI technology that I've seen, but I do not care, because there will be something better next week. What I care more about is how it's going to fit into and extend my architecture, and how we're going to have the optionality to replace that with best in class." So, going back to verification, I think it's very important that there's a sort of scheme for that as part of the architecture that these things are going to fit into, in order to do that quickly, to clear hurdles more quickly, and then also to figure out what's next.
I think it's the Atlantic Council's commissions do really good work on thought leadership around, where are the impediments, where if you can remove them or reduce them, you're going to get more leverage and move more quickly. Certainly, there needs to be a fair amount of acquisitions reform and rethinking of requirements. But there's also something that's really important, and I think, CDAO's Open Dagger, which I think was announced in May 24, represents conceptually a very good framework for accelerating the pace of software deployment, right? The notion that you effectively are separating kind of the requirements and the acquisition at the data management layer from the applications that reside on top of that. Because one of the ways in which you can go faster is actually if you have environments that you can deploy much more quickly on. And although frankly, a lot of companies could deploy, software companies could deploy if they hustle on bare metal really quickly, the challenges in those environments, their own rules and regulations, the complexities of compartmented data make that effectively a non-starter. But, realistically, if you want 1,000 flowers to bloom with respect to really powerful applications, and ultimately give an organization ability to say, hey, we're going to take a flyer with this shop, we think they're cutting edge, we think they're great, and by the way, if they don't make it, we'll swap them out and we'll drop someone new. I would welcome an opportunity where I have the ability to compete in these environments, and we win or lose on the merits, but the environments themselves aren't quite ready for that. You also have a lot of monolithic development, custom development, and system integrators, and frankly, adopting a product-first mindset is how you can best realize the innovation that's out there. I think people fear that in some way they're going to get stuck, buying a product that, they're saddled with for 15 years, but frankly, it's actually not true. It's the other way around, which is if you're using commercial software that you believe is best of breed, it's operating on a foundation and a data management layer where you actually can swap in and out stuff at the application layer, you're actually holding the hammer. But if you're stuck with years of accrued, bespoke, custom development inside your four walls, you can't ever get out from underneath that without putting those foundational elements in place.
Thanks. I'll actually use that as a transition to a question from the audience from Sam Smith, which is, how can you increase interoperability between different AI platforms that may be used in different defense and national security products? And I think you're probably best to answer that, Caitlin, given that's the focus of your company.
Yeah, so I think actually Sean touched on it. It's all about the data infrastructure and being able to have, to have access to federated data sources, to have schemas that make sense for third-party applications to come into and use. Also to make sure that not just the raw data, but the enhanced data is available to those AI companies that are going to be providing capabilities or visibility on top of it. I also think that open architectures and open standards are clearly an important part of the answer to that too. There have been a lot of steps forward since MOSA became a requirement in the NDAA that all major systems would follow a modular open systems approach, and that kind of extends to the more enterprise data systems as well. We're seeing a lot of common standards, and then also just because these are dual-use companies with commercial technologies, they've got modern, web-based interfaces. They have documented APIs that are very easy to work with, and that makes it so much simpler than some of the legacy data sources or legacy data stores that you would see in typical government use.
Yeah, and another question that from Jonathan Rosenstein. In what ways might over-reliance on AI risks create blind spots in strategy or operations? And how can policymakers counteract this? I think maybe I would add, Mihai, to your point earlier, and point this question to you, which is, well, if you've call it outsourced everything from targeting to executing particular missions to an AI, are you not learning, or are you not making the right decisions longer term because you've deployed something so tactically? Or to Sean's earlier point, invoking Shakespeare, if all good writers, you kind of have to also read a lot first. So if you have someone else processing your intelligence, will you be able to do that 5-paragraph brief yourself? But over to Mihai to start.
So yeah, when you are talking about the whole externalization of the targeting system, for example, you need to understand that AI needs a lot of data, and for us to train the AI and to do it better every day, we need data from different sources, and it needs to be quality data, and at the same time, of course, you're learning, because at the end, this is what the AI does. In one of our tests, what our AGI that we are trying to build did? It learned so much that the first thing that he did in a sandbox, he cut access to our head of AI. So I think the AI is learning even if it's outside of your organization. And it makes sense because you can, as a small startup, and even if you're a big organization, you can have access to all of the data and to curate everything and to be there to make the targeting system and situational awareness. So yes, you're learning. Yes, you're going to have the data. Yes, your model is going to be better and better, and using OTA and hyperparameter is going to be best. And of course, you need to find sources of data. So we train our AI with 10,200 type of drones, for example, with I don't know how many hundreds of planes, how many hundreds of type of tanks. And it learns, and it's better and faster every day.
Yeah, I think there's this fear that, people will just get lazy and let the machine take over. And actually, the reality is, yes, you always need to, hire smart people. They got to understand what their job is. You need to train them well. They need to develop the requisite experience, right? And they need to be held to standard. But what we're really talking about are building tools which actually will make them better professionals. And actually, if you think about it, in our context, what we're doing effectively is embedding tradecraft, as defined by the customer in software, where realistically they're able to do more of what they're already doing, but the same kind of human judgment still rules in many of these cases. Not all. I mean, there are some cases where just that that time to decision is so fast that you can't put a human kind of in or on that loop. But in most cases, actually what you're really doing is allowing people to go further in their inquiry. You're giving them better access to things they already do anyways, things like portion marking and going back to original source and really be able to kind of push back and forth on contested claims. And what you're really doing is bringing more speed, power, and accuracy to that very thing they're trained on, which effectively just makes them much stronger and better at it. But if they're no good to begin with, some people will slip through the cracks, but mostly, they wouldn't be effective anyways. But I'd argue actually they're more effective with more powerful tools than they would be without them. But overall, realistically, this is just tools with potential for tremendous power to make already capable people that much better.
On that point, just one small comment. So I just had a meeting today with the general, and he said, when the war started in Afghanistan, we had 2 data analysts, right? When it finished, we had hundreds and hundreds. So we had rooms with 100 analysts, and we didn't use AI. As at Sean's point, you don't need 100 people to analyze the data. You need one operator and a powerful AI, and that's it. So basically, you're taking the speed. You don't need 1 month to interpret the data. You need like 5 minutes. This is the idea when it comes to it. It doesn't mean that it's going to be a killer robot, Terminator, and so on. It's a tool at the end.
Yeah, there's a question around the, I think Microsoft, there's a question around the kind of innovation accelerators in offices, the DIUs and AVXs, et cetera. How do you see that environment as far as has it been an accelerator for AI adoption, startup adoption? Clearly there's wins that those organizations can point to. Are there places where they have maybe kind of slowed down the adoption of the primary users of the technology? So how do you see that ecosystem evolving? I'm interpreting the question here, but by last count, there's 160 of these type of organizations across every service and agency. Some have been wildly successful. Others are kind of trying different mechanisms by which to encourage startup participation. What's your report card on those organizations? Caitlin, you want to start?
That's a tough question.
Yeah.
Put us on the spot here. So I definitely think there are a lot of successes to be pointed to. There's also, for any small business, there's a lot to navigate. And a lot of the innovation organizations are set up to make it easier to navigate, but it actually just means you need more BD people who can go to all of the events, who can track all of the opportunities and all of the things. I think my one request would just be that all of the requirements and solicitations be more clearly tied to outcomes, to what they hope to accomplish. And it's hard, especially in the R&D space, because sometimes you don't know yet at that point. And I guess I'd just prefer to have more involvement from the operators, even in things like SBIR topics, which are very much in the R&D space. There's often a pretty big chasm between the offices who are running those types of important, and we do a lot of SBIRs, we rely on them. But there's a chasm between the people who are running those programs and the operators.
Thank you. There's a question here from Steve Grumman, who is responsible for this whole event, so I will be obliged to ask the question. But it is around, what does the future AI workforce look like? I think, Sean, you've already been talking quite a bit about that. And I would add to that, as far as what does the future AI-enabled workforce look like?
I think that's it's a pretty wide-ranging question depending on industry segment, hardware, software, manufacturing. I mean, it will touch all of our lives. I actually think in many cases, the workforce doesn't look a whole heck of a lot different, but the skills that people have and the tools they use are going to evolve. So you will have a world, for example, where there are many more people that are acquainted, at least at the practitioner level, with basic data science skills and tools, for sure. We're seeing that now with just the rise of prompt engineering, which allows most people, you don't need to be a computer scientist, a data scientist to get more out of some of the tools as they're emerging. I think, kids are growing up today, with, a software device in their hand, and that fluency with user interface is only going to increase. I do think what's going to happen is actually, in many ways, people are going to be much more rigorous in their work, because the machine, again, allows them to clear a lot of the noise at the initial stages much more quickly. I think it gives way to deeper analysis. I think you can do things, for example, with AI to test the accuracy of information, which really can speed an innovation, especially a feedback loop cycle. But it also means it really raises the bar with respect to our educational systems, because you can only get out of it what you put into it. And the smarter and better educated folks we're bringing up will be able to leverage these tools for much greater power. I mean, prompt engineering is a perfect example of that, which is, you need to have a good fund of knowledge in a particular area. You actually do need to be able to write well so that you can actually articulate the information you're looking for and what you're not. And I think actually also a grounding in statistics so you can understand what numbers mean and don't mean are going to matter an awful lot more than perhaps they have in the past.
Good, and I've been told by the fancy device that we can run over by a minute, so don't stop when it strikes 0.
On that point, just one short comment. So, for example, when it comes to AI and software, we are using a lot of AI tools. So we are more than, I don't know, 32%, and there's a percentage more active, and we are doing more because we use AI. And our people, they're not doing the repetitive tasks, which is great, and they're focused on innovation. In the same time, you need to understand that, as Sean said, we're already using AI. It's part of our life. You have your phone in your pocket or in your hand. So this is AI. Of course, in the near future, we are going to have it maybe in our head or in our ear, I don't know. But this is what Elon Musk is trying to do, not to spend time to take your phone and type something to it directly from your brain, which is, I don't know if it's a good idea. But yeah, when it comes to the whole software and defense and security, I think using AI, you can enhance the person capability with more than 30%.
Yeah. I thought you thought it was a good idea as long as there's guardrails for it.
Exactly. This is what I was thinking about, because yeah, it's a great idea, because to be quite honest, on my way here, it was cold, and I needed to pull out my phone to see the map. I was thinking, if I couldn't have it in my head, it would be easier, right?
Absolutely. So we'll end, and if each one of you can kind of take a minute and maybe start with Mihai, work our way back, so end differently than we started. But what do you think is the price of inaction of AI adoption? And then maybe more importantly, what gives you the most hope about how the U.S. government is positioning for this?
I think they're more flexible, and they're encouraging. They are thinking to see more initiatives like Stephen and the Atlantic Council does. They are willing to see startups and what they are doing in front of them. So they want to see innovation. They want to talk with them. They're available to have some calls. Just came here having a call from the DIU to show them our product. So I think it's great because they're more open. And initiatives such as one that the Atlantic Council does, to show them and to put in front of them 10 companies from them to choose or to see if they like the innovation, they can use it, it's great. In the same time, once again, if we're not taking action, we're going to be behind. And the future warfare, we're talking about war, is going to be who has the best AI, believe me. It's not about the fastest rocket or the fastest plane, because it won't matter anymore. In our test with the jets, we passed all of the expectation because the limitation right now is the human being. When you're talking about a pilot, it has the limitation, right? We're talking about AI, doesn't care about G-forces and many other things, or flight time, or so on. So if we're not active right now, we are not taking measures, we are going to lose the war, if you like it, with the whole world. And this is really, really important. And I think we need to focus to adopt and to put the out there, not only to have it within startups. We need to put it at work, as the name of the panel says.
Yeah, we have, peer and near-peer adversaries with global ambition, global agenda. We're well aware of that. They're moving much more quickly down the track, unconstrained by many things that we will be constrained with, and we're behind. So we've got to move an awful lot faster. But realistically, if you look at the pace of innovation in this country, it is absolutely there, to meet the threat and the challenge. What I'm heartened by is there is bipartisan agreement on what we need to do, maybe not down to the specific plan level, but no one's arguing that we're going at the right pace or that we're ahead rather than behind. The question is can we summon the will to remove the impediments so we need to move, I pick a number, but 3 or 4 times faster than we're moving today. This isn't like, present course and direction plus 30% will get us there. The real urgency, and not just urgency around sentiment, but get rid of the barriers that slow us down and really start measuring the rate of speed and the increase of speed and really talking to the people doing the work. Are you better equipped to accomplish the mission than you were 3 months ago, 6 months ago? If not, we got to move faster.
Thank you. And Caleb, finish us off.
So AI is definitely leveling the playing field. That's true for small businesses being able to compete with larger businesses. It's also true for countries. So as others have already said, our adversaries are adopting AI, and that our inaction is basically meaning that we'll fall behind. As far as what gives me hope, I'm very excited to see how much faster we can build high quality capabilities for the military. I think as a tool used as a co-pilot, as something that enhances the things that we do best as humans, it's already very capable. We're already starting to see that.
Thank you. I would just ask Steve to join us back.
Okay, yeah, there is nothing left to do. Hold your applause just for a second. Then to offer some gratitudes, not least for Mikhail Grinberg. This was a smoothly flowing conversation by some careful prior coordination that Mikhail led. So thank you, Mikhail. Thanks to our panelists, Caitlin, Mihai, Sean, not least our keynote speaker, Justin Finelli, and also the staff of the Atlantic Council who were instrumental to making this happen. There were many, but I would call out especially Abigail Rudolph, Alex Young, and Tadevik Kachatrin. Thanks very much to my staff. Not least, of course, thanks to all of you who took time out of your lives to come and be here, both in person, and online. Thanks very much. This is exemplary, I think. It was of the kind of convening that we like to do here at the Atlantic Council and that really distinguishes our work. So thanks for another great event. Appreciate it.